Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we are going to be doing a shell acrylic design, so I really hope you all enjoy watching. Now starting off, I have already applied some tips and a thin clear acrylic base, but before we jump into doing the design, I'm going to show you guys what products I'm going to be using today. So I'm predominantly using Cjp. So here we have their core color, which is Peach Sorbet. Then one of the colors I'm going to be using from Cjp is the beautiful Beach Walk. This looks quite grey, but it has a little bit of a beigey tone to it as well. It's really pretty. We're also going to be using Cjp Milky Pink. However, I have added a little bit more white acrylic to this, so it's slightly different if you would purchase it. And then I'm also going to be using this shade from Glam Glitz. I believe it's called Charo. I think that's how you say it anyway. I wanted to add a little bit of orange into this set and I didn't have a Cjp orange, so I went for this one. For our nail art, I'm going to be using this beautiful glitter to start off with from Charlie's Nail Art. This one is their rose gold, but it's a textured glitter mix, so it's a little bit different to a standard hex mix. It's got a really pretty effect. And then I do also have these shell pieces, which is what a lot of this design was based around, and again they are from Charlie's. So now let's jump into the design. On the first nail, I'm starting off and I'm going to be doing a extended nail bed. So I'm taking that sweet peach and I've placed this bead down and I'm just tapping it into place to create my smile line. Now it was really cold in the room I was working with, so you will see that my acrylic is taking a little bit of time to polymerize, so I'm kind of just playing around with it. I really am now just desperate for some warmer weather. The room I do nails in is the coldest room in our house, and especially if the heating hasn't been on, which it hadn't been on this particular day. So it was just taking a little while for the acrylic to polymerize. So whilst I'm waiting for it, I am just using my brush a lot to create that shape. And as you can see here, I keep just nudging it, trying to get it as neat as I can with my brush. The neater you get your smile line with the brush, the less filing you are going to have to do. Off camera, I do still file it crisp, just so that that smile line is nice and sharp. Then we're going to come in with our cuticle bead. So I'm placing this bead down at the cuticle area, getting a nice neat cuticle and sidewall area, kind of pressing it out from side to side. But what I'm doing differently with this smile line is I'm not building up the thickness as much as I normally would. This particular colour is a core colour, so you can build up your apex and your strength with it, which is what I normally would do when I'm doing a French design. But I want to add those shell pieces on to the French design. I want to add them onto this extended nail bed, and they will need to be encapsulated. So I've created this extended nail bed area a little bit thinner than I normally would. Ideally it should have been even thinner than what I did it here, but I didn't fully think that through. Now, as you can see, I'm coming in with those shell pieces. So I just added a wash of clear acrylic down, just so I've got something for these to stick into and to be able to move them around a little bit easier. As you can see, I'm just picking them up with my wet brush and placing them down on that smile line area. I don't want to cover the entire extended nail bed with these. I just want them predominantly around that smile line section of the nail. Now these are super pretty, but they are actual shell pieces, so they are quite chunky, whereas sometimes when you buy the shells where it's on a strip kind of thing and you have to break it off yourself, they are a little bit thinner, but then I find them a little bit more fiddly to break up, where these pieces already come broken, and you can break them down further if you needed to, which I think I will do with some of the larger ones that I have. Here though, I'm using a mix of the larger ones and the smaller ones and just kind of placing them down where I think looks nice. Then I'm just coming in and with washes of clear acrylic, really small wet beads, just so that these are going to hold it down and set in place so that I can encapsulate them. And then in between some of the areas where there's little gaps, I'm coming in with the rose gold textured glitter, and I'm not actually picking this up with any acrylic. I'm picking it up just using my wet brush because I only want to add small amounts of this glitter. And doing it this way, you just have a lot more control over that glitter. If you picked it up with acrylic, you would pick up a lot more glitter and then you wouldn't be able to place it as neatly as you might want to, especially when you're just trying to get a very hint of glitter like I am here. Now, I haven't done a nail like this before, so it was a little bit harder, it was tricky. But I'm definitely going to try and do a few more of these designs because I really liked how it turned out, and I have missed doing the more OTT or full-on acrylic designs because they are one of my favorite things to do with nails. It's just that the videos take a lot longer to do and I've been a bit pushed for time lately. Now, I am going to leave those shell pieces to set in place just so they don't move around when I encapsulate. So I'm going to move on to the next nail whilst I'm waiting for that. And when you are doing these type of acrylic designs, you will find that you switch from finger to finger a lot rather than just sitting around wasting time. You might as well move on to the next nail. So on this now, I've come in with a small bead of peach sorbet at the cuticle area and I've blended it down towards the tip of the nail. I haven't taken it all the way down to the tip of the nail, and you see there I did just clean off some of the acrylic just because I didn't want it to look too cloudy. I'm not actually going for a glass tip nail because we're covering up a lot of that tip with the shell pieces anyway, but I didn't want it to look too cloudy underneath those. And then same as what I was doing on that extended nail bed, I'm just picking up my shell pieces and placing them down onto the tip of the nail, kind of like a glitter fade, except for instead of glitter we're using the shell pieces. But then once again I will come in with that same rose gold textured glitter and I'm kind of just placing this down in those little gaps. I really liked how this effect turned out. It doesn't really, it's one of those designs that comes together more once you've encapsulated and top coated because it all looks a little bit dull at the moment, but once it has been encapsulated and top coated, those little glitter pieces amongst the effect that the shell pieces give off look super pretty. Again, I'm just washing over it with some clear acrylic. It does still need to be fully encapsulated, but it's just going to hold those those shell and glitter pieces in place. I lost my train of thought there. Then we're going to come in and encapsulate that extended nail bed. So I've took a bead of clear acrylic, placed it down, and I'm predominantly wanting to encapsulate where those shell pieces are. The apex area was looking a little bit thin, so I did come in with another bead of clear acrylic just so that I know I've got enough thickness down there that I can file and get a good shape, and then also get a nice crisp smile line that I can shape as well. So I do like when I'm doing any kind of French to have a decent amount of product down so that I can file it. Here I was worried that I would file into those shell pieces, so I added another bead of acrylic, and this is where I realized I should have had that peach sorbet base underneath a little bit thinner because this now does end up a little bit more on the bulky side, but I know for next time. On to the pointer finger, I'm going to come in and do a marble on this now. So I come in and I placed a wash of peach sorbet down at that cuticle area, and then I'm picking up wet beads of all 5 colours that we've used throughout this set. So I've got the Beach Walk, peach sorbet, my clear acrylic, the Charo, and also the Milky Pink as well. Now this marble did not go to plan. I haven't done an acrylic marble in ages. I was working a little bit too wet here. You do need to work wetter when you are doing an acrylic marble, but this was just a little bit too wet. So you'll see here, you place your beads of acrylic down, and you do need them to be a little bit wetter so that they marble together. And then clean off your brush, bring it to like a point, and then just swirl through your acrylic. Now, like I said, one of the mistakes I made was I was working a little bit too wet, but also I didn't go up close enough to that cuticle area with my marble design. So I popped the small bead of peach sorbet down, which is what I normally do, so I can get a neat cuticle area, but then I usually bring my marble closer so that there isn't that gap. So what I have to do here is I have to go in close to that cuticle area and create the marble design, because otherwise it just looked a bit like I'd missed a space. So I'm being really careful, working with small beads, marbling them together, and then just getting as close to that cuticle area, keeping everything nice and neat. And then I'm just going to clean it up and kind of blend it in a little bit. Overall, it wasn't the worst marble I've ever done, but it certainly wasn't the best. Here I decided I wanted to come in and add a little bit of that rose gold textured glitter. So same as before, I'm just using my wet brush to pick up the glitter. Whenever I'm only wanting to add a small amount of glitter, I will just dip my brush into my monomer and then just dip the very edge into my pot of glitter. And then this way you pick up a small amount, it's still going to set down in place because you're working on top of tacky acrylic anyway, and then you're going to encapsulate it, but it just allows you to have that little bit more control over the where you're placing that glitter down. And I just want it running through the marble so there's a hint of sparkle, because all of the other nails are going to have glitter in them. Then what I decided here was to just come in with a little bit of the Charo and the Milky Pink at the very tip of the nail, just because it was looking a little bit plain and I wanted to pull in some more of that orange. And then I just tapped on a little bit more glitter, and then I do finally stop faffing around with this marble. Then what I decided to do was to move on to the little finger, because on this particular nail we are going to have to jump between some of the other nails while we're waiting for things to set, because I want to do a color block ombre style design. So I'm going to be doing the peach sorbet and a glitter fade on half the nail, and then we're going to sort of slant that off and then do an ombre between the beach walk and the Charo. I really liked how this turned out. It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, but also all I'm basically doing, popping down that peach sorbet and just slanting it off across the nail. Again, like when we did the smile line, I'm trying to get that line going across the nail as neat as I can with my brush, but off camera I do file it crisp, so don't stress if you can't get it super sharp. You can do these cut out designs with things like a craft knife or kind of like string or dental floss as well, which makes it a lot easier, but I was doing a lot of the work with my brush. I'm going to come in with another bead just to build the thickness of this up a little bit, and I'm going to blend that back slightly. I'm not taking it all the way down to the cuticle area, because down at the cuticle area is where I want that glitter part of the nail to be. Keeping this as neat as I can. You want to be careful that you don't not getting any product on the skin or the cuticles, especially if you're working on a real person. Then I'm just faffing about, because like I said, it was cold in my room, and these color block designs definitely work better when your acrylic is setting faster. Then I'm going to pick up a teeny tiny bead of clear acrylic and dip that into my raw glitter mix, and then as you can see I'm just nudging that glitter and acrylic mix around. This is going to press the glitter into the clear acrylic, and then I'm just nudging it around, getting a nice neat cuticle line with it, trying to get as close to that cuticle area as possible. Then I did dip in to get a little bit more glitter, and I'm going to start fading this down. I'm keeping my brush wet with the monomer so that I'm able to move those glitter pieces around nicely and create that glitter fade. I don't want it to overtake the whole area where we've got the peach sorbet, so I'm being very mindful of how far down I bring that glitter fade. And then when you're happy with this, you will need to encapsulate this section, but like I want those glitter pieces to set in place, because I find if you encapsulate while your glitter is still wet, what happens is you end up dragging and moving that glitter around, and I especially didn't want that to happen because we're working on a small section of the nail. So what I did was I left that to set, and then whilst that's setting, we're going to move on to the French nail design. Now off camera I did file my extended nail bed just to make it a little bit more crisp, and then here I'm coming in with that Milky Pink mix. Now as I said, I added a little bit more of the Cjp white acrylic to this one, so it does look a little bit whiter than what Milky Pink should look like. Milky Pink does just have a little bit more of a hint of pink to it. Now it was running out, which was why I added a little bit more of the white acrylic to it, because I do love a softer white acrylic mix. I find them a lot easier to work with. So as you can see, I'm using several beads to cover the French tip part of this nail, because personally whenever I'm doing any kind of French, I find it a lot easier to do it in several beads than trying to just do it in one or two. So with my first bead of acrylic, I've placed that down, and that is the bulk of the white part of the nail. But then I like to come down into the side walls with more smaller beads. This way I've got more control over the product. Now at this point it doesn't matter if any of this white acrylic is going over the extended nail bed part of the design, because when you do all of your finish filing, you will file off that crisp you will file off that excess acrylic and reveal your crisp smile line that you created underneath. So don't stress if any of the product is going over the top of your extended nail bed. You want to just focus on mainly building up your French tip and then also making sure that no product is running in to the side walls. Now this particular acrylic from Cjp is a core color, so it doesn't need to be encapsulated in clear. So I'm just building up the rest of the tip using that white acrylic. I really am struggling today to get my words out. I think it's because I was a little bit apprehensive because this was a lot longer voiceover than I've done recently on my channel. Even though I think this video ends up around 20 minutes long. Let me know in the comments below, what do you prefer? Obviously, if I'm doing more of a nail design, like this one is 4 acrylic nails and they've got a lot going on, and naturally it takes a lot longer to do, so the video does end up a lot longer. But let me know in the comments below what sort of content you prefer, more shorter one nail videos or kind of like a mix, which is what I'm trying to get out on my channel. I'm trying to make sure that I've got a mix of shorter and longer videos. And then also trying to make sure I get out a mix of gel polish and acrylic. I definitely haven't done enough acrylic designs recently and I really miss doing them, so I do hope I get more of those out. As you see there, I did encapsulate that little section down on the nail, and off camera I did encapsulate the pointer and the ring finger as well. I left the encapsulation out because of how long the video already was, but I do have lots of videos where I have left it in, and I will try and leave it in on the more shorter videos. I did also as well on that little cutout section on the little finger, I did come in with my file and just neaten that up a little bit so that the line was nice and crisp. Then we're going to create the ombre tip part. So I'm coming in first of all with the beach walk and I'm placing that down and blending it out towards the tip, and then I'm coming in with a small amount of the Charo and blending that back into the beach walk. Now the beach walk actually blends better than the orange because it has an ever so slight shimmer to it. So what I decided to do was to blend the Charo back, but then come in with another small bead of the beach walk that I could blend over the top, and it created a much nicer fade. Just where it's got that shimmer in it, it fades out a lot easier, especially when you're not working on a full nail, so you're working on a smaller part of the nail and then you've got to create an ombre. I'm wanting to make sure this does cover the entire tip, so I come with another small bead just to make sure there was no gaps. And then we do need to encapsulate this part of the nail because we've worked quite thin. So I'm coming in with my clear acrylic, blending it back so that I know there's no gap between that peach sorbet and the colours on the tip of the nail. And then I do come in with another small bead at the very tip of the nail because it was looking quite thin. Whenever you're doing any kind of encapsulation, you want to make sure that you're always checking the nail from all angles to make sure that you are building up the correct strength and structure. Although here we're encapsulating to protect that fade, we do need to still make sure we've built up enough thickness for the tip of the nail. So quickly there, I was just showing you guys what the nails looked like once I had done all of the filing and buffing. Again, I did that off camera because it's really tricky to file on camera with the practice hands. So I tend to do a lot of filing off camera, but whenever I do my own nails, I do try to leave the filing in because I know I get lots of questions on filing. Then we are ready to come in and top coat, which is where these kind of designs really come to life. It really brings the vibrance to the colors and then all the shine to the shells and the glitter pieces. So I'm taking my Cjp tack free top gloss and I'm just applying a thin layer of this to all of the nails. Then once I have applied this, it does require a 60-second cure if you're using an LED lamp. Here I'm just touching it up in places. I do find that this particular top coat, it goes on quite thin, if that makes sense, and I find it works better if you float over it. So you'll see when I apply my top coat, I actually start at the tip area at the moment with this particular one. It's got quite a short brush, so I get off a lot of that top coat and focus on the middle to the tip area of the nail, and then when I've got less product on my brush, I come in and get a nice neat cuticle area, and then I just like to float over the top just so that it all evens out and we get a nice shiny finish. And then like I said, once we have finished applying it, you're ready to pop these in to cure. If you was working on yourself or a client, once you have cured the top coat, do allow it a few seconds to cool down, and then you can come in and apply your cuticle oil. But as we haven't got a client or I haven't got real skin to work on, we don't need to apply the cuticle oil, so I'm jumping straight to the finished result. I had a lot of fun doing this set and I really loved how they turned out, so I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, then please do give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below. I hope you're all keeping safe and well and doing okay. Lots of love. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.